Good morning. It's Friday, July 29th. You're listening to the College Football Daily. I'm your host, Lance Glenn. I'm back from my honeymoon, so hopefully I look a little bit tanner than I did before it. And on today's episode, we're going to do a collaboration of sorts with the 24/7 Sports Football Recruiting Podcast and welcome in the host of that great podcast, Blair Angulo. Blair, how you doing? Thanks so much for joining me on the College Football Daily. As if we don't talk enough to each other already, it's really great to have you on today.
Yeah, good to see you, Lance. I do notice a little bit more color on you. So that was a very successful week that you had down there. And what was it? The Caribbean?
Yeah, it's I think technically the West Indies.
Okay.
It's a little past the Bahamas. I went to Turks and Caicos, so secrets out, but I think it's past the Bahamas. I think it's technically the West Indies. I could be wrong with my island geography, but nevertheless, it was a great time, a great week. Nice to get off my feet and relax at the beach, at the pool. Have some over 21 drinks. And it really was a good time. And then look, trust me, I wish I was back. Not that I don't like that I'm back at work, but obviously, it's great to be on island time as opposed to Eastern time.
Now,
But
are you an SPF 30 guy or SPF 50? Like, how do
so
you get a base going?
yeah, so I first day I got burned, and that was not very pleasant. A little bit on my back, but what we did the following days was we just made sure to reapply, especially after we went in the water. So I think I got a good tan. You know what it was? I golf a lot. So going into the trip, I had a bad farmer's tan. And I said to myself, I need to fix this farmer's tan on this trip. I did that somewhat successfully, somewhat unsuccessfully. Some of it is just sunburn. Some of it is tan. But I would consider the trip a success because I did get a little bit of a base. I did fix my farmer's tan in a way. In terms of sunscreen, I'm frankly more of an SPF 15 guy. I go low
Wow.
there. I go low.
Wow. You got
Um,
to reapply like every hour
yeah,
for those.
yeah, man, every time. Well, I didn't on the first day, and then I finally did after that, and that very much helped limit the sunburn. But it was overall a good trip. I'm happy that I'm back. It was a lot of fun. Me and my wife, we really enjoyed our time in Turks and Caicos. I definitely go back. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Although we could do a whole podcast on it. Don't get me wrong.
Why aren't we talking about that for an
Why
hour?
don't that the new episode of the College Football Daily, my trip to Turks and Caicos. But no, we're here to talk about Pac-12 Media Day on Friday, and it's you'll be in noted Big Ten city Los Angeles this Friday for Media Day as the future of the conference. It looks bleak to say the least with USC and UCLA headed to the Big Ten, and the rest of the program's kind of scrambling to try and figure out what's next. But to start, I do just want to ask, how awkward do you think Friday is going to be for both the media as well as the coaches and George Kliavkoff talking?
You mentioned not knowing whether Turks and Caicos is in the West Indies or in the Bahamas or wherever it may be. Where are we now in Los Angeles? Are we still technically a Pac-12 city? Is it going to be a future? Do we just call it now Big Ten country? It's going to be very weird. I think it's going to be very awkward. The fact that this news dropped essentially a month ago, and we've had 4 or 5 weeks to really soak it in and let it bake and figure out what's going to happen with conference realignment. It's going to be really strange to not only be there, but also to hear a lot of these coaches talk about the uncertainty moving forward, talk about what's going to happen to their own teams or their own schools. You mentioned, I think the Kalifnikov, the commissioner, not really understanding the kind of the platform that he's on right now. The roadmap for this conference is unknown. He's basically a year and a half into his tenure. He doesn't really understand, I think, the dynamics, and it'd be different if maybe he wasn't on the job already for a decade or even 5 years. And I think you would feel maybe a little bit more optimistic about the direction of the conference. But the fact that he goes in there and he loses essentially the two heavy hitters in the biggest media market where you hold your media day every year, it has to be a big blow. So I'm really interested to see what he says, but also I'm just there for the laughs and I think I'm there for the awkwardness, right? Like I think I'm really excited to really kind of figure out, how weird is this for everyone else.
Yeah, I think anyone who watches it too, who won't be there, but will see it on TV, is really looking forward to what that's all about. So, media days to me, it kind of signals, or usually signals, I should say, the beginning of the new season. Even though fall camp still has to happen, media days normally preview what's to come for each program. But obviously, for the Pac-12, the belief is that the focus on Friday will mainly be on the future of the conference, of the conference, excuse me, less of what's to come for each team next season. But I think most coaches are sort of kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place, so to speak, right? You have Lincoln Riley and Chip Kelly who know the future of their programs. You have other coaches dealing with rumors of where their programs might go. And then you have a select few that haven't really been linked to any other conference at all. So I think you'll have a whole bunch of different messages or different stories from each coach because unfortunately for the conference, right? Any sense of unity is really at the door. It's really become, I think at least, an every man for themselves conference. And I'm really fascinated to see what some of these coaches end up saying about that.
Yeah, I think everyone wants to sit there and talk about position battles and talk about the work that needs to be done ahead of the first game or taking it one day at a time. And we're going to be hearing a lot of those cliches, but there's a whole new element to this media day, especially for the Pac-12, which I think has been in the news in all the wrong ways, losing its two marquee names. Obviously, not only just in football, but in all across all sports. USC, UCLA, in terms of national championships, are second and third behind Stanford in every sport if you combine all the titles. So they're losing a lot of luster there. But it's, I think right now for a lot of these coaches, it's about maybe signaling that they have to be looking out for themselves. Every team, every school, every program has to really fend for themselves and look out for themselves and figure out what's going to be the best path for us and for us to be a program that is very notable or a program that has a chance to be in a college football playoff hunt. I think everyone has to align themselves in that road. And right now, if the Pac-12 folds, if the Pac-12 loses other members, even if the Pac-12 adds other members from other conferences, I think that's the big question mark. And listen, I think we're just in the beginning stage of this, right? Like, I think everyone understands that there's a lot more moves to be made, and there's other twists and turns to happen. So I think everyone's going to be tiptoeing that line and not really saying too much, but I think it's very clear that everyone's going to be looking out for themselves.
And what are you anticipating from George Kliavkoff when it comes to that opening press conference? Because he's only been commissioner for, I think, a little over a year at this point. He now obviously has to deal with challenges I'm sure he didn't anticipate when he took the job. It's obviously his job to, I guess, paint as positive a picture as possible. But look, everyone there will know what's up. Everyone watching will know what's going on. I think what he has to what he has to say about the future of the conference, whether it's regarding the TV negotiations or potential expansion, I think that will really be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because this isn't even his mess, right? Like, he went into the kitchen and everything's on fire. The everything hasn't been cut up. Yeah, there's nothing there for him to really do. He's just kind of having to figure out how to fix this huge mess. This is all Larry Scott, right? Like, Larry Scott put the conference in this hole that it's currently in, where USC, UCLA feel the need to leave and join the Big Ten to get a bigger cut of the pie from a revenue standpoint, to even feel like they need to go to a top two, top three conference in the country to have a realistic shot at a college football playoff spot. This is Larry Scott's doing, given what the big mess that was the Pac-12 network and the distribution rights, and even some of the other decisions that have been made. So I do feel bad, right? Like, I do think that he's going to be up there trying to put out fires that he didn't start. So for him, I think the message is clear, and it's about unity. It's about making sure that the conference members feel like there is a strong direction and that they are kind of concentrated on just one sole path. But yeah, I feel like he will have to win that room, because he makes his opening statement every year, at least the commissioner does. and then they open the room for questions from the reporters. And I do feel that the reporters are going to press him on some things that maybe aren't his fault, but it's going to be interesting to see what he says.
Yeah, that's really a good point about Larry Scott. He seemed to get out right at the right time, and all of this mess, in large part created by him, now falls
He's
onto
probably in
George
Turks and
Kliavkoff.
Caicos. Did you see him out there?
I didn't see Larry Scott out there. Granted, I wasn't looking, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe he was out there with his family or his wife, enjoying the nice Turks and Caicos sun. But who else are you highlighting as essentially like must-see TV on Friday as you look at the itinerary? What coaches, what time slots kind of catch your eye as you prepare for Friday?
Obviously UCLA, USC, Chip Kelly and Lincoln Riley. I think whatever they say is going to be very, very notable and something that you have to tune in for. I think Kyle Whittingham, he's up first, which is really strange. They just won the Pac-12, and you put him up on the stage right after the commissioner at 8:45 a.m. Pacific. So I'm curious if our guy Kyle Whittingham has a tee time out in Salt Lake City in the afternoon that he needs to get back to. Then right after that is the other participant in the Pac-12 title game last year with a new head coach, and that would be Dan Lanning. So I'm interested to see what he says coming off of the national championship that he had at Georgia as the defensive coordinator, and kind of jumps into this new situation at Oregon, which right now I think obviously has to feel good about its chances to be the top dog in the conference in the years to come if they do stay in the Pac-12. So I'm excited to hear what Dan Lanning has to say, what maybe his thoughts are on conference realignment, given the fact that he already has a taste of the top league in the country, and that would be the SEC. And then you have the Jed Fishes of the world at Arizona. He's going into his second year, but they had a really good recruiting class, so I'm excited to see what he has to say about the direction of that program and maybe how some of the highly coveted players look like right now on the roster. But then I think maybe the most entertaining portion of the coach press conferences could be Herm Edwards, and that's because he might just be standoffish, right? Like we saw it last year, given a lot of the allegations and the review that the NCAA was putting into the program for some violations that happened during the 2020 campaign, where they were bringing in recruits allegedly during the pandemic, and it was not allowed. It was a dead period. You weren't able to bring in prospects. They've had really a flip roster, and they've had a lot of changes on the coaching staff. Even last year, he wasn't answering questions. So I'm interested to see if a year later, Herm Edwards finally opens up about some of the issues at ASU.
Herm Edwards and Dan Lanning, two coaches definitely to watch alongside Chip Kelly and Lincoln Riley. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Chip Kelly and Lincoln Riley, they're going last. So the Pac-12 looks smartly, I think, would put the two main attractions at the end so that all the media people and all the fans watching on TV make sure to stay tuned. What is it, 3 and then 3:30 Pacific, I think?
3 and 3:30, Chip Kelly goes up at 3, then Lincoln Riley for his first Pac-12 Media Day gets in at 3:30. You know what's funny is that I was curious where they would slot them, right? Like, do you want to be petty? Do you want to be, you want to throw some shade at the new conference members that are leaving the conference? Put them up first, right? Get them out of the way, and then let's just focus on the actual members of the Pac-12 moving forward. But obviously, they're still in the Pac-12 for the next 2 years. You probably want the media to be there for the entire press conference. You want them to be there for all the coaches. I'm curious what that would have looked like had Chip Kelly and Lincoln Riley been first up. I'm sure maybe 70, maybe 80%, especially the local media, they're out of there, right? They're gone. They're leaving LA Live. They're leaving downtown Los Angeles, and they're going out to their next assignment or to hang out in the afternoon.
They're headed to Turks and Caicos.
They're going to go golf with SPF 15 on their skin. But no, I do think that putting those two schools, putting the LA schools last, obviously is an indication of, hey, we want every media members to still be here. And we will all be there. I think that was very smart of them, even though maybe, the petty thing and maybe the more interesting thing would have been to make them go first.
Yeah, so much to look forward to with Pac-12 Media Day on Friday. I don't think it'll be a normal Pac-12 Media Day. I think there'll be a lot of questions that were unexpected when George Kliavkoff took the job over a year ago. You can follow him on Twitter at @bangulo. Make sure to listen to the 24/7 Sports Football Recruiting Podcast wherever you get your podcast, and make sure to subscribe to the new 24/7 Sports YouTube page as well. So for Blair Angulo, I am Lance Glynn. Thanks for listening to the College Football Daily, everyone, and have a good weekend.